Okay, here we go. Let's do another video. I would like to invite you to read Romans 8, verse 35, 36, and 37 with me. And let's have a good time reading the Bible together, having the presence of God with us together. I hope God's going to bless you right now with peace and some joy. Romans 8:35. Paul is writing this letter to the Romans, and Paul says, "Can anything ever separate us from Christ's love? Does it mean he no longer loves us if we have trouble or calamity, or are persecuted, or hungry, or destitute, or in danger, or threatened with death? As the scriptures say, for your sake we are killed every day. We are being slaughtered like sheep. No, despite all these things, overwhelming victory is ours through Christ who loved us." Okay, now let's read it slowly. Here we go, slowly. Verse 35, Paul asks, "Can anything," remember that word anything, "can anything ever separate us from Christ's love?" The answer for the chosen ones is no. No, there is nothing in the universe that could ever be done for Jesus the Christ to stop loving you, chosen one. And because that's true, guess what? You cannot lose your salvation. How do we know? Paul just told us. There's nothing that can make Jesus stop loving you. To continue, Paul's asking a question, but he's also making a statement. Does it mean he no longer loves us if we have trouble or calamity? You see, when bad things happen to us, the demons very quickly will tell you, "See Lisa, see Garrett, see John, God doesn't love you. Look at all the bad things that are happening to you. This shows that God doesn't love you." Paul goes on to say, or are being persecuted, or hungry, or destitute, or in danger, like if you're in prison, or threatened with death. This is what Paul is saying here. Chosen one, child of God, even if you're going through trouble or you're being persecuted because of your faith, or if you're hungry or even homeless, or you're in danger, real danger, or threatened with death, this doesn't mean Jesus doesn't love you, because there is nothing in the universe that could ever be done to make God and his Son stop loving you. So if you're having lots of trouble like I do, if you're persecuted like I am sometimes, if you're hungry, destitute, in danger, I've been in danger many times, or threatened with death, I've been threatened with death, this doesn't mean God doesn't love you. No. Verse 36, Paul is now quoting scriptures. As the scriptures say, for your sake we are killed every day. Did you know Christians are being murdered every day, beaten, raped, slaughtered, and tortured? You see, the media in the Western world covers all of that up. But Christians are dying by the thousands and thousands every single day. Guess what? Paul tells us they were 2,000 years ago, and it's still happening today. By the way, right there in verse 36, Paul is actually quoting Psalm 44:22. So yes, Paul did know some of the Old Testament. That's really cool. That's interesting. You see, children of God have been killed and murdered all the way back to the Psalms and even farther back, and it's continuing now, but it's being covered up. Okay, to continue, Paul says, we are being slaughtered like sheep. He got that from the Psalm. We Christians are being slaughtered all over the world. But Paul tells us earlier, this doesn't mean Jesus doesn't love us. Nothing can be done to stop God and his Son from loving you. Nothing. Verse 37, Paul gives us the answer. No, Jesus hasn't stopped loving you. No, it doesn't mean he stopped loving you. There's your answer. Verse 37, no. Despite all of these things, overwhelming victory is ours through Christ. What victory is he talking about? Is he talking about victory over smoking cigarettes? Not necessarily. Is he talking about victory over battling against pornography? Not necessarily. Is he talking about victory over the Roman government who was persecuting them so hard? Not necessarily. What is the main thing Paul is talking about here when he says, no, despite all these things, overwhelming victory is ours through Christ? The main answer is he's talking about victory over hell and the lake of fire. He's talking about victory over judgment, the judgment at the great white throne of judgment. The main purpose of this sentence is God is explaining to us, using Paul as a vessel, that no, for the chosen ones, overwhelming victory over hell, over the lake of fire, over the demons, over the flesh, is yours through Christ. Only in Jesus, through Jesus, with Jesus, do we escape hell and the lake of fire. How does Paul end this? He says, victory is ours through Christ who loved us. Loved is past tense. Jesus loved you long before you were ever born. If you have ears to hear, Jesus loved you 2,000 years ago. And if you really, really can believe it, Jesus loved you before day one of creation. Isn't Romans 8:35, 36, and 37 just so beautiful? I hope you enjoyed it. I hope God is blessing you. Don't doubt God's love for you just because bad things keep happening. That does not mean God doesn't love you. Amen to that.